James Franklin got Brian Kelly fired. And that's a wild thing to say, but I think that it's true. Brian Kelly got fired by LSU. Maybe he didn't get fired. Maybe it was a mutual agreement to part ways or had been relieved of his duties. Whatever phrasing LSU wants to use, Brian Kelly got fired. And to be somewhat truthful, I'm not necessarily shocked by that because for a lot of college coaching changes, that's how this ends. No matter the success level someone does or doesn't have in a program, almost universally, it ends in a firing. Very rarely does somebody get to ride off into the sunset under their own volition, the way they dreamed it when they first got into coaching. Brian Kelly's no different. He got fired by LSU, and I think James Franklin got him fired. Because when Penn State said, we are willing to part ways with a coach that consistently won 10 games a year, consistently was in the race for our conference championship, and now was going to consistently be in position to make the college football playoff. And that wasn't good enough. And they were willing to pay $50 million to make that problem go away. That made a lot of other programs look around and say, are we going to let Penn State out-care us? Are we going to let Penn State outmaneuver us, out-fundraise us to squash something that everybody knows needs squashed, but isn't willing to pony up to do? Because if Penn State is willing to pay $50 million to get rid of their problem at head coach, because make no mistake about it, very few fan bases, athletic departments, universities, or colleges believe that their players are the issues. It's almost always, well, if we just had this guy coaching us or that guy coaching us, it's very rarely, well, if that guy was our quarterback. And so the coaches are the ones who ultimately take the blame. Now, luckily for them, they get all the credit too, so it's a two-way street. But when Penn State says, we're not willing to accept this anymore and we will pay an exorbitant buyout to deal with this, that made the likes of Florida and LSU go, you know what? If Penn State can find a way to get it done, if Penn State can say, we're spending $50 million to get rid of the guy who consistently won 10 games, the guy who consistently was in contention for conference championships, the guy who consistently played in New Year's Six bowl games, if they're willing to say that's not good enough, then how can Florida accept and celebrate 8-5 seasons with Billy Napier? They can't. So they have to punt. LSU can't accept 9-3 seasons if Penn State is unwilling to accept 10-win seasons every year. So James Franklin got Brian Kelly fired. Make no mistake about it, Brian Kelly also got Brian Kelly fired because Brian Kelly was a victim of his own self-ambition. Because Brian Kelly had a pretty cushy gig at Notre Dame. There wasn't a lot of heat on that seat, despite it being Notre Dame, despite him consistently building a winner, but never making the national championship game. I guess one time making the national championship game, but never winning the national championship. He had a pretty cushy gig because those fans weren't rioting. Those fans weren't in an uproar that he had not led them to the college football mountaintop as if he were their personal Sherpa. There was not much heat. And yet, he went and chased after something, a national championship, that I think, and this is getting into some psychobabble bullshit, but he felt like was entitled, that he was destined to win a national championship. And if it hadn't happened yet at Notre Dame, it wasn't going to happen at Notre Dame. So he needed to find the location that it would happen. And he picked a damn good one because LSU is one of the best jobs in America. And it is a place where you can undeniably find success, as evidenced by the fact that Les Miles and Ed Orgeron won national championships coaching the Tigers. I don't think you can fault Brian Kelly for thinking, if I get to Baton Rouge, I'm going to win a national championship. Because I think a lot of people thought when Brian Kelly took that job, it was like, oh, Tigers are going to be pretty good. Because for all of his faults, Brian Kelly's a good football coach. And yet, I've said it before in the last 5 weeks or so, that fit matters. Brian Kelly did not fit at LSU, and LSU did not fit Brian Kelly. Because Brian Kelly's in that kind of same mold as Dabo Swinney of appreciate me, appreciate my greatness and excellence. And when you don't, it's going to frustrate me to the point where I'm going to discuss it. I'm going to denigrate you. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to share my displeasure that you are not basking in my greatness, that you're not worshiping at the altar of Brian Kelly. You're not worshiping at the altar of Dabo Swinney. That becomes a problem for guys like Dabo Swinney and Brian Kelly. And so Brian Kelly went to a fan base where they're not going to worship anyone. If Nick Saban had the success that he had at Alabama, at LSU, they would maybe worship Nick Saban. But that fan base didn't worship Les Miles. That fan base didn't worship Ed Orgeron. That fan base today, they appreciate that Nick Saban won a national championship with them, but they don't worship Nick Saban the way that other programs believe that their coaches are in the annals of college football history. I think, by the way, it's probably a good thing that we're now in that type of situation where somebody like Joe Paterno doesn't have an iron fist over the entire university. That's probably for the best, that there's some reflection and we've changed our ways a little bit for the better, by the way. But when you're somebody who needs to be needed, who wants to be wanted, who wants to be appreciated, respected, etc., and you are now put in a position where those folks will do those things when you win and not a second before that, it's not a great fit. And it was abundantly clear from the jump when he had the introductory, hey, I appreciate the response, and I even won all my games yet. Me and my family. It should have been abundantly clear. Oh, boy, this isn't going to go well. And to say that it didn't go well would be disingenuous. They had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback under Brian Kelly. They played for an SEC championship under Brian Kelly. They had a decent amount of success. But, and I think that there are just a few programs that could and should operate under the same guys that I think NFL teams should operate. NFL teams should, the deciding factor outside of scandal, misconduct, etc., should be, is this guy going to lead us to a Super Bowl championship? If not, he should not be our coach any longer. And there are very few college football programs that I think should operate in that manner of, is this guy going to lead us to a national championship? And the second you determine that the answer to that question is no, you need to fire their ass. You pay the buyout, whatever it is. Should colleges stop agreeing to ridiculous buyouts? Absolutely, unequivocally, yes. But they're not gonna, so it's gonna be a conversation till the end of time. But when you decide that Brian Kelly's not going to lead you to a national championship, that it's just not going to happen, you have to pull the trigger. So I give LSU kudos for coming to that determination, for just flat out saying, hey, I appreciate the things that you have done for us, but you're not going to do the thing that we most appreciate, which is bring a big shiny gold trophy back to Baton Rouge. You're not going to do that. We don't believe that you're going to do that anymore. And thus, you can't be our coach anymore. I think LSU's on that list. I don't think Penn State is on that list. I don't think Penn State is in that tier of schools that should say, if you're not going to win a national championship here, hit the road. And so when they act like they are, when they say, we're willing to pay $50 million to kick this guy to the curb to get somebody in here that we do think is going to compete for and win national championships, LSU's hand is forced because they are, I would say firmly, on that list of programs that should say, are you leading us to a title or not? And when we say no, whatever you have to do, and eventually you have to do immediately. And so LSU, I think to their credit, whether it's fair, whether it's right, whether throughout the rest of the week, SEC coaches, Big Ten coaches, Big 12 coaches will say, I can't believe that they did that. I can't believe they ran him out of town. All he did was win there, and this is bad for college football. I'm here to tell you that it's bad. It's not a good thing that coaches, all anybody wants is to win championships. They don't care about graduation rates. They don't care about raising good people. You know what? That's nothing new. Nobody gave a damn in 1968. If you went 0-8, but by God, your kids were in church every Sunday and helping out at the soup kitchen and graduating with 4.0s and becoming doctors and lawyers and curing cancer, they didn't give a shit then. They sure as hell don't care about it now. You know what people care about? Winning. Brian Kelly is almost personally responsible for a kid's death, a college student's death. And you know what got him fired? Not winning enough. The end. I can't blame LSU for dumping him because when you see Penn State acting in the role that a program like LSU should be acting in, their hand is forced. Have to do what you have to do. And Brian Kelly's no longer the coach of the Tigers, and it immediately becomes the best job available. And I'm here to tell you, over the course of the next couple of weeks, it's a great time to be Lane Kiffin, which we might talk about that tomorrow. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.